So we have our sample question. This is the last one from section 3.3. It says determine parallel, perpendicular, and neither. So in ALEKS, they want you to find what is the slope of line 1. Then they were going to ask you what is the slope of line 2. And then they're going to ask you, are these two parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So what we're going to have to do is find the slope of each line. So each line, remember, we're going to label our x's and y's, we're going to remember our formulas, we're going to plug in the values, use the bare bones formula, and simplify and reduce. So let's look at line 1 first. Make sure you know that you have an x and a y in each ordered pair. X, y, x, y. Then use the bare bones formula. It's just m equals parentheses minus parentheses over parentheses minus parentheses. Remember, it's always our y's over our x's. So change in y, let's see how we change. Remember, I'm reading this going from left to right. So I said, hey, I start off as -3, and then I changed it to -5. So I start -3, and then put -5 in the other parentheses. Then, for my x's, notice I went from 7 to 6. Start as a 7, and then change to a 6. Once you plug this in, then you can simplify. Put in your understood ones, distribute. 1 times -3 is -3. -1 times -5 is now +5. 1 times 7, and -1 times 6, -6. You know that a -3 and a +5, that's going to give you a +2. Remember, different signs, team positive wins. 7 and a -6, different signs, one positive, one negative, subtract. Who wins the tug of war? Team 7 or team positive. And then reduce. 2 divided by 1, you know that's 2. So we found that slope of line 1 is 2. Now we're going to repeat that same thing that we did for line 1 for this line. Make sure you know what your x's and y's are. Each ordered pair has an x and a y. You know we're going to have our bare bones formula. Make sure the bare bones formula is parentheses minus parentheses. Same thing on the bottom, parentheses minus parentheses. And then you can see, for our y's, remember, always do y first. You went from a 0 and changed to a -1. 0 to a -1. And my x's went from an 8 to a 10. Remember, I just keep on going the same direction, just like I read a statement, going from left to right. Now that I have this, simplify. You know, plug in those little understood ones so that you know you get 1 times 0. You know, anything times 0 is 0. -1 times -1 is +1. 1 times 8, you know, is 8. -1 times 10 is -10. 0 and a +1 will always be the other guy, 1. 8 and a -10, different signs, so subtract. Who wins the tug of war? Team negative. This, 1 divided by -2, is just going to be a -1/2. So you ask yourself, now that I found the slope of line 1 and found the slope of line 2, we said our next step is always compare the two slopes. Ask yourself, are they the same? Are they identical? Are they equal? No, one's +2, one's -1/2. That's not the same. So boom, automatically we can eliminate parallel. If the two slopes are different, which they are, they're not the same, let's multiply. So let's multiply this and this together. 2 times -1/2. You know how to multiply. What you're going to do is you're going to take the whole number, put it over 1. So that way you have a fraction times a fraction. Right? So 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Positive times a negative. Remember, this is a positive fraction. This is a negative fraction. We're going to have a negative answer. And then you know that 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. When we multiply the two slopes together, ask yourself, did you get an answer of negative 1? If you did, stop and say it's perpendicular. If you got any other answer, like negative 2, negative 1/20, then you would just say neither. Here, we got exactly negative 1, so that means these are perpendicular. If you didn't get negative 1 here when you multiply, then that's when you say neither. But for us, because we got a negative 1, we're going to say that we have perpendicular lines. Alright? So on ALEKS, they're going to ask you for this. So you say your answer is 2. They'll ask you for this. M is negative 1/2. And then you would drop down and say the two are perpendicular.